Hey, good morning, gang, and welcome to a bald eagle fishing adventure. And today I'm not fishing. Weather is not that spectacular for that. So, looking forward to pretty soon here, hopefully in about a week. No, today I'm answering subscribers' questions, and it's very humbling. I'm very appreciative that you guys entrust in me to give you some professional advice. You may be sadly disappointed on the professional part of it, but I'm going to give you all the years of experience that I have come together with, I guess, and what has worked for me, what hasn't worked for me, and hopefully I can help guide you with your questions and give you some answers that obviously can help. So that's the whole meaning behind this video. And you're going to want to stick to the end because I do have a little secret that has really helped many a times putting a fish on board. So, and specifically, we're talking about salmon today. So, anyways, let's dive into this, all right? So, I had to bring me a little cheat sheet because I do have several of these questions on here. So, please bear with me. So, first question. They're all great questions, but this is a good one. Weights. Downrigger weights compared to inline weights. So, downrigger weights, we're very familiar with these. This is a 10-pound downrigger weight, okay? I pretty much, that's all I use on board my boat is downrigger weights. And I'm going to talk about different weights, different poundage for these weights, and when to probably best times to use them. So that's coming up here real quick, but we're going to first talk about downrigger weights versus the inline ones. And what I mean by inline ones is sinker releases, inline sinker releases. You know, you attach this on your fishing line and then you have your lure and so forth behind it. And there's a little slot right here and you put a 2 or 3 pound weight in here. Okay. Fish comes on, pulls on there's a little clip thing here. You can't really see it, but there's a little give to it and it drops the 2 or 3 pound weight. These are used pretty much all the time on charter boats and stuff like that where they're not using downriggers. Anyways, so the question about the usage of these is what seems to work better for catching salmon? And man, that is a really great question because you know what? Over the years, you go on charter boats and especially when the fish are running shallow, this is just deadly. I mean, and I've seen it not just on my boat, but I've been on other folks' boats, privates, where we had downriggers out and we've had the poles with just 2-3 pound weights. And I'll tell you what, most of the time, these will outfish the downrigger weights. And that's always been a kind of a question. It's like, why is that? Why does the fish tend to want to gravitate towards, especially when everything else is the same? You're talking about the same bait, same lure on the downrigger poles compared to the ones that are using this. And I do believe over the years of watching the poles, watching how things work, it's an action thing. It, the movement of the boat with the lighter weight creates more of a movement to the bait or the lure, if you will. And they work phenomenal, especially when the fish are running shallow. And I mean anywhere between 20 feet down to, 50 feet or so. The challenge with these is that you are using 2 to 3 pounds and they're heavier to use on a pole. That can make it a little encumbersome. Another big aspect, and one for me, is because the 2-3 pound weights, they're not cheap. They're $10-12 a piece. And I mean, oh my God, especially this year with all the silvers we had, I mean, it would be a fortune to have to lose, 10, 20, 30 weights in one day per person. The silvers were incredible this year. And I only see that just getting worse as time goes on since we're not able to take any here in the state of California. Anyways, that's for a whole nother subject. But anyways, so I do believe it has to come down to action. And another thing is usually with downriggers, we're running anywhere between 10, 20, 30 feet, maybe even a little bit to 40 feet of line behind the boat before we put the downrigger down. These are just a few feet. These are just like, you know, maybe 4 to 6 feet of your leader, and you're dropping it straight down. So there's only 4 to 6 feet attached to this little 2-3 pound weight sinker release. And so it's much closer. Everything is going to feel a much more movement of the boat, and that kind of fluctuation, I think, does cause a lot more action to that lure or bait. So that's my take on it. I believe it's an action thing, and I think that you can alter that a little bit by changing, and I've done this with my downrigger weights. So sometimes 10 pounds can be a little bit heavy if the fish are running shallow. Simple fix. Get yourself a smaller downrigger weight. This is about a 6 pound downrigger weight. And, you know, if the fish are running shallow, this is all you really need. And don't put your line out so far behind the boat. Maybe go just 5 feet behind the boat, or even 10 feet. I wouldn't go much past that. If the other poles, if you're lucky enough to have other people on board, maybe you put 1 or 2 poles out that are getting the bit on these sinker releases. Get another set of downrigger weights, get some lighter ones, shorten up the amount of line you're putting behind the boat, and see if that works for you. It has for me. So that's my take on that. Okay, so anyways, I hope that's clear as mud. If you guys have any other questions on this one particular question, I'd love to hear from you. I'll answer the best I can. Or if any of you have any other thoughts on this, I'd love to also hear from you. Leave it in the comments. All right. Speaking of downrigger weights and poundage, so I carry 3, okay? I have 3 sizes on board: 15 pound, 10 pound, and then my 6 pound. And the 10 and the 6 I run when the fish are running shallow. And what I mean by shallow is less than 100 feet, okay, down on, you know, from the surface. When early in the season, and we're dealing with spring run fish, and we saw that all the way kind of through mid-July this year, the fish were running anywhere between 125 down to 200. And really, to get down, when you're talking 150 feet on the wire or even 200 feet on the wire, you need a heavy downrigger weight. And there's really not much to get around that. And so I have the 15 pound big boy for that one. And it works great. You guys saw it on my other videos earlier this year, picking up some nice salmon way down deep. But now that we're getting into the fall run fish, these fish are running shallow. So like I said, I wouldn't go any heavier than 10 pound. For me, that's what works best. And like I said, in some cases, put that 6 pounder on, or a 5 pound or something like that, and see if that helps make a difference. A little more boat action, you know, a little rod action to that lure. So that's covered on that. Now let's move on to a really great question. Yeah. Okay. So let me get this out. I want to have you guys take a look at this. So let's get this out here. Bear with me. Okay, so this is a great question. This is your line clip, and this goes attached. Obviously, many of you know this. This goes attached to your downrigger weight. All right, so your fishing line, then you open this up, this little alligator clip, just by squeezing it. You put your fishing line in here, and then you drop it down to whatever depth you want. I had a few viewers ask, what do you do about line coming out of the clip prematurely? As soon as you start putting it down and it gets a little bit of resistance on there. I told some, you know, make sure that the line is all the way stuffed against, you know, as far into the clip as possible. But some of you guys are running braid. And if you're running braid doesn't work really great on these clips. There are some adjustable clips out there that actually has a screw that you tighten that screw up, and I heard that those work better. I've never used one, so I can't really tell you one way or the other from my personal experience on that. But I do know on these line clips, they don't really work well with braid. And but there is one way to fix that, because I do run braid on my fishing poles. And that's where I think a lot of the questions came from. They saw that there was braid on my line and you're going, how are you not, having it pop off your clips? So I run 65-pound Power Pro green moss braid on my salmon poles. And absolutely love using braid for fishing, because it's just so much more sensitive. You feel every little thing. And it's just there's no stretch to it. However, with salmon, it's always good to have some stretch. And so you do have your leaders that have mono or fluorocarbon or something like of that sort. But sometimes that's still not really enough shock absorber, in my opinion. So, and one thing that makes it nice using with these downrigger clips is mono. But you need to have a little more mono in order to get that line behind the boat a little bit. I run 50 feet of 40-pound test mono attached to my braid line. And I do that by using a double uni knot. And you can look this up on YouTube. It'll tell you how to tie those two together. But yeah, it's basically mono to braid. And the uni for me, I know there's a lot of different knot systems out there that will do the same, putting mono with braid. I think the all bright knot is another one. There's several knots, but I've used uni to uni for so many years. So the double uni for me is what works. And that's how I attach mine. So what I do is I have this 50 feet of mono, and somewhere in that 50 feet is what goes into this clip. And so I still have the braid on my main part of the line for my pole on the reel, but 50 feet is where, somewhere either be, like I was talking about, anywhere from 10 to 50 feet of line, I have that to work with this clip. So that's what works for me to keep the line onto the clip until a fish hits it. That's what you want. All right. And again, any questions on any of this, send them to me. All right. So that's the second question. Let's get on to the third one. What do we got here? Let's see. Back down. Okay, we already covered that one. So number 4. Okay, so this question here is about, should you be using mono or braid when it comes to using the sinker release, the inline sinker release? My preference, again, I don't really use these a lot, but my preference, and what I've used in the past, is that I like to use braid up to the one side of the sinker release, and then obviously you have your leader that has your lure or your bait or whatever, and that's going to be mono or fluorocarbon. I prefer braid, and the reason being, especially if you're going on a charter boat, is charter boats tend to troll a little bit on the fast side, say than maybe a private, and the trolling speed that they're going at, if you're using mono, I've seen this, I've had it happen to me, is that the line gets stretched way out because there's so much drag in the water caused by the mono. So I then switched to braid whenever I was going to go on a charter, and that made a world of difference. It cuts through the water so much nicer. It keeps the line more with a good bend, going straight down more or less. There's always going to be a little arc to it, but not where you have this massive, big old stretch of mono out on the water because of the drag. So in my humble opinion, I would say braid in that instance with this kind of release is an absolute must. Again, if any of you have any other thoughts on that or questions on it, send me the comments. I'd love to hear from you. So that takes care of that. All right, let's move on to, we're coming to the end here. Now we're on to this little secret. I love this one. This has worked for me so well, guys, and I'm really excited to share this with you. So in my humble opinion, I think it's really important to check your baits and check your lures. Um, and really, this goes more even to when there's more junk in the water. You really, really got to check that stuff often. I've had people on board my boat. I've seen it on other boats, and things don't get checked for 45 minutes or an hour, and that's just too long in my opinion. Um, you need to check, I would say, within 15-20 minutes. Every 15-20 minutes, bring that line up and check your stuff. See if you've got any junk on there. There's going to be a lot of times there's nothing on there, and it's kind of feels like a waste of time bringing your stuff up. And a lot of people hate having to keep checking over and over. But when you have junk on your line, no fish is going to touch it. Or maybe you've gotten bit, you didn't notice it, and your bait's all mangled up, and you're driving around trolling with a chewed up bait. No fish is going to touch that either. So check your baits often. 15 to 20 minutes is what I recommend. That's what I do. And there's a trick to that actually helps you put fish on board. So I learned this a long time ago, and it's really great either using a downrigger or those inline sinker releases. So you're going to have to bring it up anyways to check your stuff, right? So do it in increments. So what I do with my downrigger is say, let's just use a number of 50 feet. I got 50 feet down on the downrigger, and I need to bring it up to check. I'll just bring it up 10, 15 feet. Just hit the button. As soon as on the counter shows, it's come up 10, 15 feet, I stop and I pause for about 30 seconds, and I just wait. And then I'll do it again. Another 10, 15, pause and wait. And I'll do that all the way up until it's at the surface. The reason being, and I've had this happen, and I've put fish on board more often than I can even count. That little surge of draw, there may have been a salmon there kind of cruising and looking at this thing and just not really, maybe fully committed to taking a bite of this thing. And all of a sudden, it gets pulled a little faster, and it just triggers that fish. And I've had them hammer it the moment I hit the thing, and I just see the pull, bing, and it just starts zinging. And I mean, like I said, I've had it happen quite a few times. And I always, like I said, just give it 30 seconds, and I've had them hit and pop it right off the downrigger clip as I was just doing this little set. You got to check your bait anyways. It's a great way to just kind of add a little something to your arsenal. And really, hey guys, that's really what it all comes down to, is just, when the fishing is off the hook and people are catching limits all around and everything is going great, you can pretty much do whatever you want to do and you're going to have fish on board. But I'm just trying to, for me, it's always when things are not going quite well, it's a tough bite. And that's typically a lot of times the case. Maybe the salmon are just, they're just not really fully committed. It's one here, one there kind of thing. These little tiny tidbits in your arsenal of all your stuff can just maybe help you get that one or two fish on board, so you don't come back to the dock smelling like skunk. And I hate smelling like skunk. And you can even still do all the right things, and God, I've come back smelling like skunk. I hate it. So anyways, guys, always a pleasure with all of you. Thank you so much for the great questions. I sure appreciate all of you. If you found this informative and this was helpful in any way, shape, or form for you, please hit that subscribe button. And I would love to hear from some of you what your thoughts are about some of the things we discussed here today. And especially if you have any ideas of things that you've done and what has worked for you. We're all here together, all my brothers and sisters out there, fishermen and fisherwomen. We're all here to help each other, and that's what this is all about. And that's why I thought this would be a great thing to kind of share with everyone, to see if if there's someone out there that just had one little question about this and maybe it helped. That's great. Anyways, till next time, guys, it's been a pleasure. We'll see you on another bald eagle fishing adventure. Take care, gang. Bye.